Well, this is a second segment in the top 100 facts or truths series. Um, I didn't. It's always complicated when you have these interrelated things. Which one is going to be second? Which one's going to be third? Which one's going to be fourth? And so I'm going to choose, just arbitrarily. I think, in a sense. And so this third, it's a second segment, but this third truth is equality, is the notion, the idea, the truth that we are essentially equal to each other. Obviously, we have differences that are meaningful in terms of how we perceive the world and how we react to it and how we behave. And there's differences that are sort of irrelevant, such as appearance and whatnot. But our effective equality in the sense of the substance of our existence, the character of our capacity to think and feel is essentially equal. I mean, obviously, people with brain misfunctions or deficits not included, but I don't mean to imply anything in stating that. I mean, it's that they're less human or less deserving of inclusion as part of humanity. So anyway, so we get to we've got the first thing down. There's no God. The second thing down is that yes, we are part of the physical universe. Physics, crude forces have basically inspired, whatever the right word is, that universe. That is, we are the product of the physics of matter and the process of selection that takes place in the way life evolved, in the way even matter combined and consolidated, and that those are the only forces involved. There's no need to inject any secret or hidden intelligence or plan or plot behind all of this. We are the product of forces that had no agenda. They are simply that, just simply forces. The speed of light, the attraction of matter, the construction of energy. That's it. That's all there is. And the physics that dictate its progress, its evolution through the universe, as it expands, as it contracts, as it does whatever it does, in whatever dimensions it does it in. But there's no evidence of anything else. So anyway, those are the first two. So that's the foundations. Now there's this third truth. And it seems like it should be an obvious truth. It seems I shouldn't have to even explain the truth or justify or defend the truth in any manner. I mean, obviously, people should be able to look at other people and say, yes, you were created by the same process, we are genetically equal, you were born, you were raised, you exist on this planet, we have the same basic history, you're not from an alien world, you're from this planet. So it's it shouldn't be a truth that has to be defended. But obviously, it seems there has to be some defense because people refuse to accept it. They refuse to accept, anyway, the logical implications of it because they are dramatic. I mean, obviously, if we are obliged to accept the truth of equality, then we are obliged to accept the idea that there is no empirical or no, from an umpire's perspective, there is no distinction between if a suffering has to be endured, the suffering being endured by me or being endured by you. If the decision has to be made, there's nothing in the facts. Our equality sort of demands that there not be a prejudice towards one or a preference towards another, that there is an obligation to concern ourselves with all feeling, thinking humans, that we cannot escape that responsibility, because what they're feeling is just as important as what we are feeling. This one truth gives us the capacity to understand. Like I said, there's so many other truths built on it, but it gives us the capacity to understand why gorging would be wrong, and hoarding. As if there was a mountain of food and I just gorged, way beyond what I needed to survive, way beyond what I need to be comfortable, and while others equal to myself were starving, well, that would be obviously wrong. It could be judged as wrong, because it would be the same thing as starving myself. And obviously I wouldn't do that. It would be the same thing as harming myself. I wouldn't do that. So I mean, from this notion of equality, obviously slavery or exploitation of another human being becomes an obvious wrong. I think lying would become a wrong. I mean, it sort of puts you in the golden rule trap, where you must essentially treat your neighbor as yourself. You must appreciate that in their circumstance. I mean, you don't have to think your neighbor's as good as you. I mean, our essential equality doesn't oblige you to feel that way or think that way, and that's another subject. So I mean, certainly you are it's within your rational rights to judge that your needs are more important and that your satisfaction is more important, but there has to be a justification for that distinction. And without it, if you don't have any cause to think your neighbor is a lesser, if you have no cause for that perception, then you're going to have a hard time justifying any action you take that harms your neighbor, because that harm is essentially a harm to yourself. I'm equal. And so that's the implication of this parity. We just can't, it seems we're always looking for ways to evade it. And certainly when we get into economic discussions and the rest of it, I've received a lot of hostility towards the notion of equality, because people, yes, find excuses for their own superiority, for their own right or entitlement, and a right to say somebody else's deprivation is something they earned, something they deserve, something that is has nothing whatever to do with any system or unfairness or anything that needs correction even. And that's, we'll get into the, I have already started that political argument, and I certainly will extend it, but that's sort of the implication, though. This is one of the big truths, is this notion of effective equality, just because we really do have to, without good cause, and that's the key phrase here, without good cause, we really have to see others as ourselves. We really have an obligation to appreciate that acting selfishly is irrational in a sense. We should try to act as efficiently as possible and as productively as possible, but selfishly in that context, when you are depriving an equal of something just as necessary, and something they may be able to use more effectively or efficiently than you, then there is a breakdown in logic there. There is an irrationality in thinking you can evade that truth, and that somehow you can accomplish something as a self, when you compromise something equal to yourself. Just can't be done.